Good evening, ladies and gents. This is a special episode with Ryan from Grassroots to Grand Prix. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
I'm all right, yeah. I'm all right. Been looking forward to doing this, actually. We've only been planning this since October, folks, and here we are.
Yeah, there's been a few diary clashes, I think is a fair way of putting it.
Yeah. Oh, well, never mind. We're here now, aren't we? So, yeah, fine. I mean, effectively, I think what we want to talk about is we kind of know what you do, or we can cover that again in a minute because it's been a while since you've been on the pod, and what Grassroots to Grand Prix does or is involved in or helps people with. But we'll start off with what's happening in the road to Moto 3 now for young British riders or American riders. We know what's going on with the Spaniards and how well they're doing, and we'll go into the myth of them having it easier. That's not the case it was. We'll go into that in a minute. Me and Ryan really want to talk about that. But basically, Ryan, um, in general, right now, from pocket bikes or mini bikes, how is it looking and how is it faring to how it was 10, 15 years ago for the Brits or Americans, basically the West, that are struggling to get onto the main scene right now? How is it faring right now in the last couple of years? Is it getting better?
Yeah, I think there's the UK is one of the probably the only country actually where we have sort of two main mini bike championships, where you've got the British mini bikes with the IM Moto Mini UK, and then you've got Fab Racing, which runs
Yeah,
the sort of two-stroke metric kits, basically, is their premier classes. So we're probably one of the only countries in the world that have got two sort of competing championships almost.
yeah,
I would say that now, like Peter Hickman now owns BMB, and I think that's definitely a positive. I think there's a much better chance of sensible decisions being made now between the two
yeah,
series. So that's
yeah,
that's a big positive, obviously. The As I said, and I think with this country, we don't have the pool of riders that Spain, Italy have. So once you have two separate paddocks, it does make it a bit harder. But there's this year in the Minimoto rookies, which is always quite a good guide on health. That's really, really fulfilled this year at Fab. So obviously that's people in their first or second seasons riding. So the bigger that grid is the bigger intake of riders that have started up
yeah,
racing this
yeah,
year. So that's a big fields this year. So that's a big positive. Like I wouldn't know the attrition rate almost on how many kids that start on a mini moto make it to a metric kit or an Ovale to then make it into Moto 4. I don't know the attrition rates, but like obviously the more there is put in at the bottom, the higher chance there is of people coming
yeah,
out at the top in simple terms. So yeah, that's very positive. The standard of riders I think is very good. Last year, if I'm wrong, correct me if someone knows, but I believe Mason Fedrick was the first ever British rider to win an Italian championship outright. So he actually won the official Italian Ovale 110 series. So he's done that against all of the best kids in Italy, essentially. So to have a
So
kid
where's he?
that's
Where's, for example? Sorry to interrupt. So where is he right now? So after
so
achieving that, where is he?
so he's actually racing this weekend in the FIM Moto Mini Italy. So they're racing this weekend at a track called Modena. It's a massive, massive track for mini bikes. So it's actually where they held the Red Bull Rookies test about 2 years ago.
Right.
Really good
Yeah, I
track,
know.
nice
I know the track.
flowing,
Yeah, yeah,
unbelievable for like a 10-year-old to be racing there. So it's sort of without going into too much detail, but when you're sort of saying about advantages, disadvantages, the access to tracks is so much higher in Spain and Italy. So, that's a big advantage for the
yeah.
Italians and the Spanish. But no, so Mason's racing there this weekend. He's also racing in the Mir Racing Cup Moto 5 series. Now they're actually racing this weekend at Valencia. So
Yeah.
he is prioritizing the Moto Mini Italy series over Mir Racing this year
Mhm.
because there's obviously the chance of making the world finals. The first round of the season, he sort of got really good. I think he was 6th and 7th, I think, off the top of my head. But
Nice.
he was in the league. He was in the league group to win both races. So to be doing that on your first sort of year in the 160 class in Italy, you've got to be pretty good. So no, we do have riders, that's for sure. It's, as I said, it's sort of just a bit harder, like plotting the riders from this country sort of around, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But no, like this weekend we've got five riders racing in the Mir Racing Cup at Valencia. We've got three riders racing ESBK in the Talent Cup and the Pre-Talent Cup. Well, I say three. We've got three and a half. There's an American English. He's American passport but English born. Matt
Like John
McCuggin.
Hopkins.
Yeah, I guess so.
Um,
Yeah, so he's. I'm not sure if he's born. He's certainly got his mum. His mother's definitely from the UK. I can't remember where he's born, but no. So he's half British, half American. He's also racing there. He's with the Aspar Junior team. So
uh,
yeah, he's obviously in the right place to say the
I was going to say
least.
you're in the right place. If you're fast enough, you've been looked after well enough there. It's you're not gonna, you can't blame the equipment basically if you're riding for Aspar,
No,
can
and
you?
it's the facilities that you
Yeah,
get access to as well.
yeah,
It's yeah, to be honest, it's what this country lacks is that sort of
yeah,
infrastructure essentially
yeah,
that you probably see it on Instagram that some days Circuit Aspar, which is a brilliant track, is
yeah.
closed just so that the Aspar Moto 3 and Moto 2 lads can go out and have a ride around.
It's just
And
absurd, isn't it? The contrast
yeah,
is
like
nuts.
yeah, we just can't do that basically in this country. We just don't have so, like don't get me wrong, Aspar have worked incredibly well and been incredibly intelligent in the way they've planned everything out to get into their position. So, all credit to them. But sort of as a Brit looking in, it's something that we just don't have. And also, as well as the track, they've got the kart track. Then they've also got all of the academies in the car park there,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
you've got all of the garages where riders can just leave all of their bikes there to go
yeah.
as and when they want to ride them. So yeah, that's definitely one of our biggest problems is just the lack of infrastructure compared to
Mm.
the Italians or the Spanish. And like obviously same goes with the Americans. Funny you should say John Hopkins. He's recently, in the last couple of years, become the official distributor for Ovale in America.
Yeah, seen that. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, and to be fair, he seems to be, he's at most nearly all of the events, and so he seems to be putting in quite a bit of work, which is great. And also, like, just for the kids to have someone like that around them is brilliant. And sort of this weekend, it's the UK Moto Mini Series. I'm going to assume, based on the news from 8:10 this week at
oh yeah.
BSB,
They're
I
pulling out,
imagine Pete.
but for now
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, so I imagine this weekend Peter Hickman will be at Rower for round three. He's been at the first two rounds for at least one day, and as I said, it's just good for the kids to be able to
It's a good role
have
model.
people like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's
massively.
also not. It's also just nice for the kids to know that people are taking an interest at that level. I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
No, that sort of yeah. I'd say we've got some really quick riders, and
Oh,
yeah,
massively. It does. It does. I mean, you spoke about the Spanish thing, which we'll get more into in a minute because that's a question. The subject I want to talk about. With the Italians as well. But it does sound like the infrastructure for young British riders is the platform is there now more than it was in between. Oh, I don't know, 2000 and 2020. It feels like the infrastructure is more there now, as much as it might be just as it's more expensive than it ever was. Probably, well, it will be. But there is now, especially with, I mean, obviously, step up from the smaller bikes. But when you get to Ovale, the Ovale thing wasn't. It's only been around 10 years, if that.
yeah,
So that manufacturer, these Ovale bikes, I think there's about three or four different engine sizes, folks. Have a look at Ovale, OHVALE. I'm sure most of you know anyway. But these bikes are really stiff chassis. They're mini Grand Prix bikes in a way, in certain ways. Yeah, Peter Hickman is giving a lot of young riders chances here. That's a massively broad term, by the way, folks. Yeah, it's not like these bikes are free or anything. But the structure that is across Europe as well. It's not just like the UK getting finally getting some treatment, but the structure is definitely there. And these series and these cups, obviously, the British Talent Cup's been around about a decade now, which has become rumored. Some people have said it's not what it should have been or was after the first year. It's a bit dad and laddish. It's still there. And we do have champions trickling through there into rookies or junior GP or Moto 3 Junior, whatever it's called now, and then into Moto 3. So it does feel from an outsider who doesn't. I mean, this is what you do. You're looking at the junior categories more or less all the time, probably more than MotoGP. It does feel a bit like now if you're good enough, and your parents have have got like £400,000 maybe saved up, or they just know someone that's a sponsor that like you and you're very good. If all that's there and you're fast enough, it is potentially easier than it was before because there's more structure about now, or is it still as hard as ever?
The structure's there, but the costs have just gone through the roof. So you could be looking at, I'm going to talk in broad figures here, but you could
Oh
be
dear.
looking at 11 or 12-year-olds paying for wild cards to racing championships between 6 and 10,000 for a weekend.
And which championships are those for wildcards? Are we talking European talent
So that would
cups?
be, yeah, so that'd be like the no, so that'd be underage for the talent cups. That'd be the ESBK championships. You'd be looking at you know, you could be paying anywhere between 6 and 10,000 euros for one weekend.
And that's so,
And that
folks. That's not even European talent cup. So that's not
no,
even
no, no, no,
those.
that's
Gee, so that's not even those little Moto 3 bikes. The Honda Moto 3 bike from 2012 that is now being kept on as junior bikes, isn't it? For Moto 3.
well, to be honest, the ESBK Talent Cup is now
Yeah,
because obviously it's no longer British Talent Cup, it's Moto 4 British Cup.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
the ESBK Talent Cup does run the Honda NSFs, but they're just slightly restricted.
Right.
So
Okay. So they
that's the
are those old Honda Moto 3 bikes, NSFs, but they're more
yeah,
restricted. And a wild card is going to cost you between £6,000 and £7,000 for a race weekend. Yeah,
basically,
yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
possibly more.
Right. Yeah,
So you're talking about, and then the pre Talent Cup at ESBK, the similar sort of prices. So you know, really, like you could have 11, like 12-year-olds paying 7.5 grand for one weekend's racing. So there's
and you have
definitely
no
more
idea how
structure.
they're going to fare. Yeah, it's a gamble as well. I'm guessing as well. They can be handy in Moto 5 or on some mini bike championship. This is again a broad terming here, but then that's the gamble you take. They could bin it and hurt themselves and be sore for the weekend, and that's it. And there'd be £6,000 to £7,000. The thing is, surely Ryan, the family that's taking that sort of chance probably have that, and if they're ready for that sort of.
No, I would say actually, I remember like I saw. No, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think some
Okay.
people just are going to try and make it happen, basically,
Yep.
and are
That's good
willing
to
to
hear,
put
though.
it in. So
Yeah.
yeah, as I said, I think no, as I said, so there is more structure, but the prices are insane,
Premium.
really.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you're sort of looking
Okay.
at, like junior GP rides for say, it's like an ETC ride could cost someone, say, 200,000, that sort of ballpark as well, and that's for, say, a 14-year-old. That
Yeah.
might be upper end possibly, but you're talking like very, very,
Six
very
figures
solid
we'll get
six
when we get to
figures.
junior GP level, isn't it? Really.
For that be
Um,
for Moto 4 European Cup, so 14-year-olds.
so those are the NSFs as well, and that's for a
Yes,
season.
that's the NSFs, yeah.
Six figures for a season. Jesus. And that's before you get to junior GP, and now that is easily six figures. That's
Yeah, that's
um,
quarter of a
that's
million
basically
sort of
Moto
look.
3 World Championship level, isn't it? So Moto 3 Junior World Championship, Moto 3 Junior, whatever they call it, right? Which is those basically are Moto 3 bikes. As Eddie O'Shea was on the show a couple of months ago, folks, or maybe a month and a bit ago. Really, really happy to have him on, and he told us the difference between Talent Cup bikes and Red Bull rookie bikes and World Championship bikes. And basically said the Junior GP Moto 3, Moto 3 Junior bikes were effectively Moto 3 bikes. Sometimes they felt more powerful, some riders have said. So it doesn't surprise me that you're paying 300,000, 200,000 for a ride there.
Well, there's
Um,
a really weird thing whereby the junior GP bikes can actually be fast, are actually probably faster than
yeah.
the World Championship ones because they don't have like a oil partner, for example. Like quite interesting actually. Michael Laverty was talking about this the last round, where
Yeah.
they don't have like a specific oil they have to use in Moto 3 Junior, whereas in actual Moto 3 they have to use a specific oil.
Well,
So
it's all
they're
Repsol
able
now,
to,
isn't it?
yeah,
It's all
exactly,
Repsol.
yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, I see what you mean. So in Moto 3 Junior, you can have your own dependent oil partner, and it can be optimized for your bike in a way.
Yeah, or
Is that what you
even
say?
just
Yeah.
an oil they said that's like the one they use, I think, is basically just lighter, so it's worth about 1 horsepower.
Which in Moto 3 can make a tiny difference, can't it? To be fair. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, and I
Wow.
also think at least it was last year. There's also like a different Honda engine you can use in Moto 3 Junior than there is in actual Moto 3. So if you actually look back last year, I'm pretty sure off the top of my head, Marco Morelli did a quicker time in Junior
Yeah. I remember you saying
GP
this. Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the MLab bot. Like so he's riding for MLab in Junior GP and he's riding for MLab in Moto 3, and his qualifying time was quicker in Junior GP than it
Yeah.
was in actual Moto 3. So it's one of the only things I can think of where potentially, don't get me wrong, we're not talking seconds, we're talking like temps, but like there is a chance that you're actually going to go into a slower bike by going up in grade, which seems a bit intuitive, I guess.
Just a bit.
But no, so as I said, but yeah, so once you get into like Moto Juniors, big money, like that is not, that's eye watering sort of money.
But a
So
question
no,
to
that
you for that before I forget this question because I've been meaning to ask this. So when you have a rider, I mean, we've had British riders ride in Junior Motor 3 for Aspar
yeah,
in the past,
yeah.
right? Are they paying for that? Or is MotoGP paying for it because they need a Brit? Or is Aspar saying, no, we'll pay you, or we won't pay you, but we'll give you the ride? What happens there? Do you not know? Or
I won't
is
answer
someone,
specific. I won't answer specifically, but Dorna only fund rides via the junior talent team. So Philip Soroviak this year in Motor 3 Junior,
yeah,
that's or through the MLab team. So Ethan Sparks is in the MLab Moto 4 setup, the Moto 4 European Cup. So the only way, to my knowledge, the only way Dorna funding goes is either through the junior talent team or the MLab setup.
right. Okay. Okay. Understood. To be fair, because it is. Sometimes you see that and think, how is that working? I mean, is that is that a £500,000 ride? Sorry, euro ride? Then it's just guesswork. You think it's yeah, it's it's a grey area. So yeah, thanks for saying that. But that sort of brings us on to the first
Uh,
major question I've got. I've got a few. Go on, sorry, we're going to
Just
say something.
quickly going back,
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
just pulled it up. So Marco Morelli in Moto 3 did a
yeah.
137.2,
And this is Valencia
and
last year you're talking about, isn't it, in
yeah,
qualifying? Yeah,
yeah. So in actual Moto 3, he did a 137.2. In Junior GP, he did
right.
a 136 flat.
Yeah. So
So he
hang
would
on,
have,
that's 1.2 seconds.
yeah. So he would have been on pole. He'd have been on pole by 9 tenths.
I
In
do wonder if that was well not flagged, but I think the world championship must. Well, they'll know now. I thought we need to watch it here. That's stupid. That looks a bit. That looks ridiculous. Um, but it's just more heavily regulated in the world championship, isn't it?
yeah, that's
So
basically it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I can see how it can fall into that when it's less regulated and when you've got the same engines and the same chassis.
I think the
I can see
Honda
how it can
uses
fall
a
into that.
different engine. Well, I think Honda are able to use a different engine in Junior GP than they are in actual
I don't
Moto
understand a lot.
3.
I don't know why they need to or want to spend money in doing that in Junior GP. I find that bizarre.
Yes,
Unless it's
winning's great. Winning's good marketing, isn't
winning's
it? At the
great,
end of
but
the
I mean,
day.
it's yeah, it is, but it's weird for Honda want to do that on a scale where no one really knows about it unless you're in Spain. But that, yeah, there we go, there we go. But speaking of Spain, there is still that. And I know you see it on Facebook, you will see it all the time. You'll have your Barry from Barnsley type with a picture with his BMW, and he'll tell you that there's too many Spaniards. There's too many Spaniards. They get the best bikes. They're not even that good. Your usual type. And yeah, sorry, folks, if you're called Baron, you're from Barnsley. It's nothing personal. And hold your stereotype for a laugh. But it's not the case, is it? And the reason they are so many riders from Spain in Moto 3, and there has been some races this year with the top 7 are Spanish, by the way, folks, is because of what Ryan was saying earlier on. But we need to finish up another subject, so that's why I didn't say it then. But if you've got a go-kart track that's more or less open to you all the time and it costs sod all to go there, these kids can finish school. And I mean school because obviously they're that young when they start and go straight to the go-kart track on these mini bikes. And it's more or less always sunny. And they're doing this from a young age. You can't do that in the UK. You probably can't even do that in the UK in a go-kart, even though we're a car country. So it's already there for them, folks. It's already ready there for them from a very, very, very young age. And it's cheaper to do there as well. Okay, it won't be drastically cheaper. Ryan can correct me on that if I'm wrong. And the weather's better. It's just all perfectly aligned for them. So when it gets to these selection events, sometimes people say there's too many Spaniards here, but they're just faster. They just are faster a lot of the time. And team managers in the World Championship might be ushered sometimes. Can you hire someone else, please? So I thought, okay, well, why? When they're going to get beaten by Jesus Rios or someone like that, who got a ride in the end in World Championship anyway. Ryan, do you understand what I'm getting at here? Because yes, it's sometimes frustrating when the sport's trying to grow and you think, okay, guys, we need to sort of can we limit it to the best generational talents from Spain, please? And can everyone else just go to superbikes? It doesn't work like that, does it? Team managers are only going to want the fastest of the fast.
At
So
the end of the day, it's not a charity, basically.
no, it's
It's
not.
it's competitive sport, so it's not the Spaniards' faults that they're so far
No.
ahead in because there's multiple factors, like it's so many factors, but like one, it's quite simply how many kids each year sit on a bike and start riding. That's the
Yeah.
first one because I like obviously Spain, you're going to have the number in Spain. Obviously there's no official figures, but say it's 10 times more than there is in Britain. Then they've instantly got lazy maths without, ignore any sort of knock on effects or anything like that or any other side things. If they've got 10 times more riders than we have starting each year, they've got 10 times more like to find Mark Marquez, essentially. So
Yes.
then you couple in the fact that, as you said, they not only is it the go-kart tracks, they've got lots of facilities where it's basically done in car parks, essentially, where they've got setups with cone drills and everything like that. So what you
Yeah.
see in Spain is like on Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, Monday nights, you will have like the Pacosta School or something or RS Academy, and you get a load of kids like the Pacosta one. There's so many kids go to it, and you've got kids from like 6 in the evening through to 8 doing 2 hours of solid cone drills and everything like that's not even necessarily on a track. They're just doing it in on a space that's available. And I think where culturally like, culturally, Britain, like the UK is more four wheels, I would
Yeah.
say. Whereas
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Spain,
Yeah.
until Fernando Alonso started winning races, they didn't really care about Formula One.
No.
So you're looking, it's a much more motorbike minded country. So a kid in Spain is a lot more likely
Yeah.
to want to start up bikes in the
Exactly.
first place.
Yeah.
And as I said, then you've got and also because they've got these facilities on their doorstep, British parents have to take their kids out of school to go to Spain, so miss schooling or have to homeschool and whatever. Whereas these kids can go to school for 6 hours or whatever it is, come home, eat tea, and then go. Like you take, like in
Yeah.
this country, you take your kids to five-a-side training in the evening or football training or
Yeah.
tennis, whatever
Yeah.
it is. You've got like flocks of families in the evening taking their kids to do bike training. And this country, we just don't have anywhere to do that at the moment. Like,
No.
there's plenty of places where potentially they could, like, look at all the flat air, like all, there's plenty of places where that could happen, but it doesn't at the moment. I think Spain seem to have an interesting attitude on health and safety and insurance. I'm saying that from the outside, so I could be completely wrong, but I think we're certainly more restricted in this country by
Yeah.
insurances
Well,
and such.
yeah.
So that just adds cost, and the more cost, the more unviable things become. So no, I would just say, like, with the Spaniards, like, there is now a thing where the Spanish passport is actually a negative in terms of
Yeah.
for MotoGP, but
Yeah.
they still have the advantages of the facilities they've been able to take advantage of from the age of, say,
Yeah.
5. And then
Yeah.
obviously, because it's such a big sport in Spain, it probably, I
Yeah.
don't know, is it probably the 3rd sport in Spain behind
I
football? And
think it'd be bound football. Formula One might have passed it to a degree now because of Alonso and Sainz, but I wouldn't surprise me if it still beats Formula One for certain races for TV views. I mean, I think more people go to Catalonia than Formula One now than MotoGP is why. It certainly was the case last year. But yeah, in terms of the sport in Spain, I'm not sure where it ranks, but it will be in the top 3, whereas MotoGP is probably not even in the top 10 in the UK if we're comparing those two countries. And I just said it is definitely more heavily regulated in the UK. There is
that
certain parts
also
of the
that
UK.
I was
Yeah,
going to
I
say,
was
but
going to say that.
obviously with the popularity of the sport,
Yeah,
it suddenly makes finding sponsors so much easier. So in this country, it's hard to get sponsors because basically what you've got to do is get 12 or 13-year-old kids. Can you? My dog feels very strongly about this point. Can you sponsor can you sponsor my child to race in this Spanish championship? There will be no people in the crowd watching it. There is one YouTube stream that's only in Spanish and about 400 people watch it. Do you fancy giving my kid £50,000 for the year? Like it's just unviable. And whereas obviously in Spain, because it's much more of a like, it's just a bigger sport. It's much easier for the riders to find sponsors.
yeah,
So even like for junior GP, like forget the 12-year-olds and stuff. Realistically, like this is one of my big bugbears, is TNT Sports have Moto Junior and Red Bull Rookies, and they don't even bother putting it on like this weekend. Not this weekend, sorry, because it's not there. But like when Red Bull Rookies is at a um, MotoGP, they don't even bother putting it on their poster to say that Red Bull Rookies is racing this weekend. So you've got Ethan Sparks and Sullivan Mounsey racing
Manzi,
in
yeah,
Red
yeah,
Bull
yeah,
Rookies. Like Mounds has already got a podium this year,
yeah,
and TNT's
yeah,
social media team don't even bother mentioning that it's happening. So
yeah.
unless you happen
I
to
know.
hear Michael or something on the broadcast say,
They did have it with Jello though. They did have a feature with Mounsey. They did have an interview with Sullivan Mounsey, but that was a separate thing, a build up to the Grand Prix, the Sunday Grand Prix program. They did have an
and the
interview
Red
with
Bull
Sullivan
Rookies
Mounsey.
races have both already happened by then. So you
Yes,
wouldn't have
so you
watched
couldn't
the
see it. All you saw was a clip and him, how well he's been doing at Le Mans and Magello. But yeah, I know your point. The point is that for
so
goodness
like
sake,
there's
if
no
all the bikes yeah, if all the bikes are on TNT, show all the bike championships, especially if these guys are going to be coming through the ranks in a couple of years in the World Championship. Give them a fighting chance for sponsorship first, because
Yeah, like we can't say we don't have any stars and then completely ignore them. That's like, as I
yeah,
said, like
yeah,
obviously Michael talks about it a lot, sort of on the broadcast, which is brilliant. But like the actual TNT channel don't, as like the social media side of it. And even like the other weekends, you had one week where you had MotoGP, World Superbikes, and BSB all on the same weekend. And then the very following weekend was the opening round of Junior GP, and there wasn't a single post or
mm,
anything on TNT socials to say
mm,
we're actually showing live motorbikes this weekend.
yeah.
And you've got Philip Soroviak,
Yeah, list of
Ethan
British
Sparks,
riders.
Sullivan.
We're showing this. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, you could easily do a post like that and just show it.
Like,
the
let's be
rights with
honest,
that.
that
Yeah,
takes someone 10 seconds. Like, literally, it's a
yeah.
2-minute job, and they don't bother, and I just find it mental. Like, I don't understand it at all. So,
What about
like,
the
I
broadcasting
think
rights for the Moto3 Junior Championship? Is that something they need to
RTNT
obtain, or
Sports.
is it? Yeah, so they have the rights for it, so that there's no excuse for not showing it live.
No, no, they do show it live, but they just don't tell
Oh,
anyone
they're
they're
not. Oh, right.
showing it
Sorry,
live.
what you're saying is they're not putting it on Facebook, Instagram, X. That it's
Yeah,
happening. Is what you're telling
exactly.
me,
They
right?
should
Okay,
be
right,
publicising
right, right.
that we have live bike racing on our channels this weekend,
Yeah, yeah,
because obviously there's quite a lot of people, as you see on the BSB forum and stuff, that only subscribe to TNT or HBO, whatever it's called now, for the bikes. So
yeah,
when there's a
yeah,
weekend where there's no bikes on, like where the three main ones aren't on, surely advertise the fact that you've got live bike racing all day Sunday. It
yeah. That
seems
that is
like a
stupid. Yeah,
no-brainer.
yeah, yeah. That is
So no,
daft.
that we don't help ourselves, basically, is what I'm trying to say there.
No, no. I mean, that's TNT just focusing on those championships, isn't it? Instead of the junior category. Which, if you want someone in MotoGP from the UK, every single bit needs to be squeezed out. Especially when the UK interest is quite niche. It is a niche. You once told me what you do is a niche of a niche as well.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
but one thing I was going to mention about the Spanish thing as well. There used to be, I think it's stopped now. This is why it's getting harder for some Spaniards that aren't generation talents to get up through the ranks, which is probably why it's getting harder for the likes of Manuel Gonzalez to move to MotoGP, which is obviously further up the ranks, that conversation. But it's the same principle. There used to be in the early 2000s, I remember with Chaz Davies, I think, struggled with this. Spanish riders were picked because of sponsors they could bring, which has
Yeah.
changed now to a degree. But that was because also the Spanish rider could communicate with the mechanics better. I mean, you must know about that as well. Does that still happen to a degree? Or if someone, let's say someone's really, really, really fast and I don't know, let's say Senna Agius he didn't end up in intact and Aspar wanted him. I think Aspar would have just hired him anyway and they wouldn't give a
I
shit if he
can't
doesn't
see
speak
that would
Spanish.
be I
Yeah,
can't see
what I'm
that would
saying is it's a
be
thing of the past. My question is, do you think it's a thing of the past where there was some clicky teams back in those days when there was no supplier for it was you had to pay for your tires and everything like that. The factory Aprilias were here, and then there was dumpy Aprilias there. But if you were Spanish, you'd get a factory ride with a Spanish team and a good Aprilia. Those days are long gone. But I think a lot of people think that sort of thing still happens now, and that's incorrect, isn't it? Basically,
Yeah, I'd say maybe I think Aspar
that was just an example. That was
probably
just an example. Yeah,
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 yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say I think Aspar would be a team where I'd probably quite like to keep the Spanish riders.
yeah. Yeah, they
But
did have Bradley
yeah,
Smith though. To be fair, that's probably a bad example of that
that is
team. They had
true.
Bradley Smith and Bankaya Aspar, and he rode for them for 2 years, didn't he? And won two or three races. So Aspar was probably the wrong team. But yeah, there was other Spanish teams, wasn't there, through the ranks that definitely were. There's sometimes I think Dorna were telling them to hire a British rider or an American rider, and they didn't want to know about it. They didn't want to know, and the rider was unhappy. The team rejected them, and yeah, there's some of the stories you hear from other interviews. I think it was a Chaz Davies one. I'm trying to remember the name of the podcast to plug, but it was really, really interesting. That sort of thing doesn't happen, but because that was said so much at the time, is what I'm saying. I think a lot of people get confused and think that sort of thing still happens now when it doesn't. All of these championships, these world championships, everyone runs the same tire, has access to the same tires. You don't have to pay for your tires, and it's just a bit more fair. There's no factory bikes in Moto 3 and Moto 2. Well, okay, Moto 3, we can have another conversation another day. It's not what we're here for.
Some of the
um,
bikes do look quicker than others.
yeah,
The what would I mean? Because well, if you look at it, you've now got a point where you've got riders that are now, let's be honest, Spanish, like having
yeah,
to find a South American ancestry for their passport for MotoGP. So like
yeah,
that proves the point to me is like,
yeah.
we're now in a space where, is there suddenly an influx of South American talents that have been learning in South America? Or
Are you talking
are,
about David Alonso? Are you talking about Marco Morelli? Surely not.
I'm not naming any names, but I'm just saying they've suddenly developed an awful lot of
Yeah,
infrastructure in South America in a short space of time
yeah.
to start getting riders to be winning races in the Grand Prix paddock. So that sort of basically disproves the whole thing, doesn't it? The fact that you've actually got Spanish riders, well, no, South American riders using South American flags. So,
Yeah.
as I said, that to me proves the fact that it isn't a massive advantage now to have a Spanish flag next to your name.
No,
In
no.
like you have all of the advantages we've discussed, but at the point where you're at MotoGP, it's not an advantage to have a Spanish flag next to your name. You're better off having a different flag next to your name, basically.
I think it's because MotoGP. I feel like the sport were embarrassed to have in the Premier class at least. They probably won't care as much in Moto Two because less people watch it. Well, we love it and we watch it all the time. What I mean is from a broader audience, less people watch Moto Two, obviously. So if you were to have, let's say all the current Spaniards, maybe let's say Rins left next year in MotoGP, and Gonzalez moved up in a team of some shape or form, and Guevara moved up, right? Figure this
Yeah,
out. You'd have 11 Spaniards, 22 riders, the best in the world, and you'd have 11 Spaniards. Now, that is not a good look if you're looking at it from a global perspective for growth,
no,
in my opinion. It doesn't look good. Yes, they probably are their merit. They are. No rider really pays for riding MotoGP. It hasn't happened for a long time.
no.
That's a fact. I
I
mean,
mean, you're
Guevara,
probably looking back at Carol Abraham,
yeah,
aren't you? It's
Carol
that
Abraham,
sort
it'll be,
of
yeah,
yeah,
and maybe Darren Binder in 2022. I think he
yeah.
brought some money to a degree, but at the same time, it doesn't really happen anymore. So it just shows you, yes, the talent pool is deep and it's more in Spain, which we discussed. They're there for merit, but from a global, this is the conundrum here, folks. This is it. Yeah, you can have 11 Spaniards in MotoGP, but trying to grow the sport, people don't. Well, why are they all from Spain? Whereas in Formula One, and I know this is a comparison you shouldn't make, but it is the two pinnacles of motorsport. So that's the comparison I'm making there. There is quite a good mix of nationalities, and they are all there on merit. But then that's probably because four wheels are big in most countries. So there's more of a balance, and the talent pool's deeper from each country. They are more clever. I know they had Logan Sargent from America, didn't they, for Williams a few years ago. There's
Yeah.
never ever going to be an issue with British drivers coming to Formula One because it's basically the same thing they have in MotoGP with Spain. It's the same in the UK with British drivers. Um, but it just
Well,
looks
it's
bad for
literally the exact
if you've got,
inverse, isn't it? Because you've
yeah,
got like all of the international drivers, sorry, flocking to the UK to race in our feeder series, basically.
yeah, yeah. So it is the same equivalent, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's frustrating because I know Liberty now own at MotoGP and they're probably looking at ways to make the grid look more diverse for nationalities, which I do get. The thing, the nationality thing with well, some people call it the fake nationality thing. I don't really care when it's someone like David Alonso, who is having a tough year, folks, but he is a generational talent in my eyes. There's something weird going on at Aspar Motor 2. I don't really get it, considering the fact that Holgado looked like he was going to romp off with the championship or at least go head to head with his teammate. Something weird's going on there. I do rate those two as MotoGP worthy. And to be honest, because of that, they have to be MotoGP, even though Holgado Spanish. He now deserves to be more than Alex Rins or Maverick Vinales, truthfully. And you can say the same about Gonzalez. So these riders do need to move up. Some of them generational, some not. If they're replacing someone who is as good, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense initially, but if you're as
And there's
good,
also the thing with like within Spain itself as well, because it's such a big country. You've got like
yeah,
the regions of Spain support their regional rider as well. Like, because it's so big, isn't it? You've got sort of, it's not like they just support each Spanish rider, that you will
Valencians,
support.
Murcians,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Catalans.
Catalans,
Yeah, like it's almost not saying they're separate countries, obviously not, but
no,
there is that sort of support whereby you've got so many to pick from if you're Spanish that you're able, like we couldn't care less where in Britain our riders come from because we're just grateful we've got one there,
yes,
basically. Whereas
yeah,
you've got the luxury in Spain of going, do you know, I'll pick the one that's within 50 miles of my house. That's the rider I'll support. Whereas you know, they could be from Land's End to John O'Groats, and we really wouldn't care, would we? Really,
No, we
from
wouldn't
this
give a shit. No,
country.
no,
And
no,
so
we
as I said,
wouldn't.
like like within Spain, it does work because you sort of pick the regional, like it's like the regional side of it as well. But yeah, no,
Yeah,
I agree. Liberty will definitely want it to become less one country sort of dominating. But that's a really long term, because I think Asia Talent Cup or Motor4 Asia Cup, however we want to call it now, that's a really good example of, you sort of touched on it earlier, because British Talent Cup started off on the same format as Asia Talent Cup. But obviously for that format to work, you need really big investors. So obviously Asia Talent Cup have got like Indomitsu and stuff like that are
yeah,
clearly pumping
yeah,
in the money to make it as it is. Whereas we only had that investment, say, for 2 years, I think it was, wasn't it? So like
yeah,
that's then left us in a position where it is run as individual teams. But by having it the way it is in Asia, you've then got the same sponsors are paying for the Moto 4 European Cup ride for the riders as well.
yeah,
Whereas Ethan Sparks is the first British Talent Cup Moto 4 British Cup winner to get the ETC ride, because previously it's always been dictated as a, basically it's got to be in the junior GP paddock, not paddock, as in it's got to be on the junior GP bike, not on the Moto 4 European Cup bike. Whereas Ethan's the first one that's getting help to be in Moto 4 European Cup, and I think that
yeah,
does make a big difference, because
yeah,
to try and go into junior GP as a 16 or 17-year-old, having your first year racing in that paddock, it's really hard, like
yeah.
without
It's daunting
sounding
that.
too
Yeah,
simple.
yeah,
It's just such a big learning curve. It's so competitive. Like the style of racing in Spain is different. Whereas someone like Ethan has come through a Spanish route. Basically, he's done the Moto 4. He did what was pre Moto 3, which is now ESBK Talent Cup. He did that. So like the more we saw, and it's similar with Casey, because Casey did like the Puna de Campeones championships, which were, that's now Mere Racing Cup. So
yeah. Another name change.
yeah, I know it's a real pain in the backside trying to sort of describe all of this when they keep
Yeah,
changing names to very similar names. But basically, you've got all of you I think you've got to be doing it from it. If you're not doing it from a really young age in Spain, it's obviously not impossible, but it does mean that you're starting off on the back foot in
yeah.
something that's already insanely competitive.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we've discussed that already, but it's something that won't be overcome overnight, and probably there's chances it never will, unless there's certain. If we have a resurgence of two-wheel interest in the UK, like it was in the '70s, and we're off and running, and a reversal of health and safety laws and regulations, which won't happen
Well,
either. So it would have to
and to
be
be
a
fair,
massive
like
U-turn.
what I was gonna say, and to be fair, like anyone that follows my account probably last year would have seen that maybe at times I wasn't always that positive about the MLAV team. But like since they've made the changes, like credit where it's due, Macaulay Webb, who took over after after Hungary last year, I
Yeah,
think you would say now the MLAV bike is the second strongest Honda on the grid. Which
I was gonna get to this. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It looked
so,
incredible. It
yeah,
looked incredible at Magello.
the turnaround in performance from that team is
Yeah,
brilliant. So like that's obviously a massive, because if they do well, then it can only be a positive for everyone in this country. So like the turnaround there is massive, and that's a really, really big positive. So as I said, like, last year maybe at times I wasn't that positive about the team, but like it's the second best Honda on the grid now.
yeah.
And if you're second best to Leopard, and let's be honest, to sort of exceed Leopard is quite a big benchmark. So if you're close to Leopard, you're not doing badly, basically. So like fair
Yeah,
play to them, essentially.
yeah, yeah. When you've got a regulation that's being respected by obviously that team, that's probably the best Honda. I'm joking, folks. Well, I'm not.
I
I'm
can't
not. There were
comment. Um,
well, well, you can because Leopard were
yeah,
found guilty, so you can actually comment.
I'm joking, yeah. Well, because they got caught on something in Malaysia, didn't they, as well?
Yeah,
That something to do with ECU maps, wasn't it, from memory?
yeah, and yeah, and well, were they caught putting the fake energy drink into the fuel and made it faster as well? Yeah. Okay, I'll
Not
stop
sure
now.
on that. That is, but no, but as I said, like going back to the original point, like
Yeah,
how
yeah, yeah.
much the MLAV team has improved, or Grid Honda,
Is it
whatever it's
Grid? Yeah,
called
Grid
now.
MLAV. Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah,
honestly, that was Macaulay was obviously touched on. Eddie couldn't wait to bring what he's done up in the interview. What he's done what he brought to the table.
yeah, he's
He's
turned the
created
team upside down.
he's turned it into that sort of family thing. It feels like he's made what I was going to say what Gareth Southgate did to England, but I won't do that. But yeah,
But
it feels well. No, I love what Macaulay does with these bets he's been doing for the scooters with Eddie. That's clever. I mean, that's making Eddie feel at home and in incentive as well, mini incentive to do well. I did. I remember texting Alex watching Moto3, and he was like, "Shut up! I'm like 10 laps behind you. I've been doing things. I've been on pause." I was like, "All right, okay, fine." So then when the race finished, I mean, I was texting Alex would text me saying I was like, I can't wait for Alex to like nearly have a heart attack. He's gonna be texting me a minute, watching Eddie O'Shea, and he was just like, "Come on, Eddie!" He texted me on WhatsApp, "Come on, Eddie!" And then he was at 3 laps. He said, "Mate, I've got 3 laps left. I'm so fucking scared because I know what he
no,
was feeling. I
it's
know.
great. It's what we need.
Yeah,
And to be fair, like I think one of the biggest telling like things to look at is if you look at how many crashes that team had last year
yeah,
and compare that to this year, it's night and day. It's not even like, but it's clearly a much easier bike to ride than it was last year. So, like, you've got if you're crashing a lot, your confidence, unless you're Mark Marquez, who's just different to everyone else, if
yeah,
you're crashing a lot, your confidence is going to go through the floor. And the fact that they're not I don't know what their crash statistics were last year, but
yeah.
that'd have been pretty bad. Whereas this year, yeah, they've gone down a couple of times, but it's not often, is it?
Well,
So I
it's
think that
the normal amount of time for they've been crashing the normal amount of time for any team. I think right now, yeah, it's yeah,
like as I
worlds
said, I
apart.
think that's one of the best. I think that's a really noticeable metric that the bike is clearly this season for
Yeah,
a much easier bike to ride and a more predictable bike to ride because last year through a lot of the fast mid-speed corners, it just seemed to
yeah,
high side, and that must have
yeah,
been really hard to know what to do. Whereas, as I said, you like look at the way Eddie was moving that bike at Mugello. He was, he's able to cut back underneath like top
yeah,
riders on the grid at,
yeah.
at relative ease. So the bike must feel so much nicer to ride, just
Yeah.
like optically from the outside. It
The way he
appears
was
that
riding
way
that
anyway.
Honda at Mugello, it looks like he was able to turn it underneath people, like the KTM's used to be able to in
Yeah,
Moto3. More, I mean, whereas the Honda, I mean, it looks slippery as anything, isn't it? He looks the most aerodynamically efficient rider in the world right now on that Honda. Coming out of Bicini, the last corner, he was tucked in at full lean almost, already under the screen, whereas some riders are still not quite arse in air, and Eddie was already there. His exits out of Bacini were brilliant, and that was giving him an incredible slingshot. He was also able to hold
I
a
think
tight
they've
line
done
as
a lot
well.
of work in the wind tunnel, haven't they? So, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
because even small details like which way your ankles are pointed and all that sort of jazz. So, like, no, as I said, like that's a massive positive for British racing. Like that,
yeah, yeah,
if they're going to be the second best Honda team on the grid,
yeah,
that's not bad. Like that's not bad at all. And obviously, I'm sure they'll want to be the best team on the grid. Forget best Honda, but like considering where they were, that's a massive turnaround. So,
yeah.
and it feels like I don't think the Honda can win on every single circuit,
No, it
but
definitely
I
can't.
would
No,
no, but on a track where a Honda can win, you can win on that bike now. And I think that's probably the first time that you can say that about
for
that
a while,
team.
yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, one can only sort of feel for. Well, I know he's in his second year with CIP now, but I feel a bit for Scott Ogden. I think he would have benefited quite a lot from the current atmosphere in the MLab team, which is ifs and buts and maybes and pots and pans mean nothing. What happened and the timing of where someone was in life, it's the way it works. But Scott's not doing too badly at the moment. He's there or thereabouts, wherever Eddie's outside around the top 12, 10. So is Scott, almost 9 times out of 10. And you can say the same about Casey. Casey's obviously in his first year and he's shocking everyone to a degree. Obviously Irish, I know. I'm not stupid, folks, but yeah, it's looking better this year in the lightweight category than it has for an awful long time, I think. It's just a shame, obviously.
Mm.
We lost Jake in Moto 2, and that boat never really sailed to MotoGP. Which obviously, since we're covering Brits, I want to speak a little bit about Christian Daniel and Mounsey from
Yeah,
rookies before we move on to like a last question. But it was a shame that Jake Dixon never got that ride with Grassini Ducati. I think that was quite close because was it the Discovery Channel or Warner? Basically, the bosses of the bosses of the bosses of the bosses wanted Jake Dixon on that Rossini Ducati for 2024. Those rumours were quite heavy in 2023 at Silverstone. It never happened because Mark Marquez went to Ducati instead of Rossini. So I wonder what that will have turned out to be. Probably an expensive bill, you could argue, for the Rossini team for a couple of years. But at the same time, who knows? I love how I'm wondering that. And a minute ago I said ifs and buts mean nothing. But yeah,
it's hard
I
with
thought that was a
Jake. Like,
shame.
yeah, like it feels like Jake beats himself in his head a lot of the time because when he's good, he's very like there was times in Moto 2, say 2 years ago, where like obviously where he had the injury at round one, he was like never in the title hunt. And there was a point where he ran up a sequence of wins and podiums, and you're thinking, God, he looks good. And then like the moment it looked like he was back in with a chance of winning the Moto 2 title, he then started having the crashes again. So it's like that the talent's there. It's just how to extract it for obviously MotoGP is so hard, like MotoGP, Moto2 is so hard because it's not 10 weekends a
Yeah.
year, is it? It's
No,
20, like
22.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to be so consistent. And as well, that's not 22 weekends in Europe either, is it? It's 22 weekends with, you know, the environmentally friendly calendar where we seem to fly halfway round the earth multiple times instead of just dropping
Yeah.
south for 100 miles instead. But anyway, that's
Mm.
beside the point. But like all of that is must be so difficult to deal with. And as I said, it feels like Jake always has had the talent, but yeah, it just felt like sometimes maybe he just couldn't quite get the results consistently enough for
Mm.
whatever reason.
Yeah, I think Jake, especially now it sucks as well because the HRC thing, it wouldn't say it's not working out. He's just spent half the year already injured. So what a deal that was. Factory contract, factory break, and HRC. And I actually thought if that wasn't happening, he could kick ass in World Superbikes, or at least, show what the Honda can do because it isn't the best bike in World Superbikes. He's not even able to do that at the moment. So, yeah, hats off to what Jake achieved in Moto 2. I think people forget how many wins he actually ended up getting. He had averaged about 2 wins a year. Um, and I'm not trying to sound like a bitter Englishman because obviously this podcast isn't, we aren't focused on the Brits really. We talk about them now and again, like I guess the Australian ones do as well. The American ones do too. But if you look at it in 2025, Jake won 2 races out of the first 5. Which is only one less than Manu Gonzalez. There was no rumours about Jack Dixon going to MotoGP. There's plenty about Manu Gonzalez. But obviously, I know Gonzalez challenged for a championship further into years than Jake did ever. But it's just the way it works out. And it is how it is coming, folks. So we spoke about Ethan Sparks. I'm really excited about him in the future. Sullivan Mounsey, who has been getting, I think, is it 2 podiums now or one? Or is it just one podium
Just
in
a,
motor,
he's had
in
one,
just the one in
yeah.
rookies? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And he's only going one way as well. He's going north now. And Michael Laverty was saying he's got his eye on him as well. So we could maybe see Sullivan Mounsey in Moto 3 next year. I think he'll be old enough. Sparks won't be for another year. Probably 28, won't it? When Ethan Sparks is old enough to be in Moto 3.
unless he
Unless he's a
so
champion or
he
a runner up.
yes, he won't be eligible
Yeah.
for 28 unless he wins or top threes in Red Bull or Moto Junior.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's only 15 this year, basically.
Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it, when you think about it? Which, by the way, folks, just how it changes. He'd have been able to be in my 125s by now. Ethan Sparks would have been in 125s now if it was like if you go back, rewind time. When Scott Redding won the British Grand Prix, 125 to see British Grand Prix at Donington Park in 2009. Just imagine
Well,
Ethan Sparks
Ethan's
doing that in
actually
Silverstone.
well, Ethan's actually the first rider that was held back due to because previously he did British Talent Cup or Motor4 British Cup age 12. So he was the first.
Yeah,
So he was like the first rider affected by the age change. So he was ready to go into British Talent Cup when he was 12, but the age change happened. So that's why he then went and did the Moto 4 in Spain and stuff like that. So he's sort of it hasn't affected Spain so much because they've got such a conveyor belt that there's just so many riders in every year group it doesn't really matter. Whereas because we just don't have the quantity of riders, it sort of made more of a difference in this country. So like he's the first one that was held back age wise. So Moto4 British Cup this year's got like the most rookies we've had for a long time in it. It's like 9 rookies or something, 10 rookies. And this is where this age restriction thing is now sort of correcting
it's now.
itself.
Yeah, to say it's now plateauing in what it should be. Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. Like, yeah,
Yeah. Maybe normalising's a better way of putting it. Yeah.
yeah,
So Ethan's actually the first British rider that was held back due to the age changes.
yeah.
So yeah, like, and obviously he won Motor4 British Cup as a rookie, which is like a massive achievement. And sort of by doing that, that's now given him because he did do most of the season in ETC last year as well. It now means he gets like 4 years racing in the junior GP paddock before he can move up
Yeah, in
to
a way, that's a
Moto
good thing, then, isn't
3
it? Really, yeah, because the
massively.
level,
Yeah,
yeah,
and there was a photo of him like from years, like from when he was 12 on one of Ryan Saxelby's bike, who won the championship with. And you do look back now and think, God, it is for as annoying as it must be for every rider that was put back by the age change. When you see, like, he wasn't exactly giant this, like when he won the
nah.
championship. When you see how small he was as a 12-year-old on the bike, you go, yeah, that was a good decision to move the age limits. As annoying as it would have been for certain people, definitely the right call. 100% it was the right call.
Well, yeah, look at
Mm.
If you look at Parc Ferme, but that British Grand Prix was all about. A certain Marc Marquez was third in that race. Now, when you see
Yes.
Marquez in Parc Ferme, he's even younger than Scott Redding, and he's 15 as well. And he looks about 10 when he gets off that
Yeah.
Red Bull Repsol KTM that he was on. He looks ridiculous. Uh, but yeah, but I'm glad it's now plateauing and, as you call it, normalising for these junior categories, because otherwise, what it's doing effectively is costing a family £500,000 because of the rule change. If you add the years together in terms of cost, isn't it? Really, let's be honest here. Up to £500,000, €500,000, because they can't go straight to Moto 3.
Yeah, it's
But
just
yeah,
meaning that like now it's happened, parents are planning out how they like most parents will be basically working back from Moto4 British Cup. So
yeah,
now everyone knows that that's the score. You just plan, with that in mind. Whereas for
true,
someone like
true.
Ethan, they'd have gone, "Oh, we're doing Moto4 in it'd have been what 2023," and then he'd have gone. Then literally they'd have received an email and gone, "Oh, we're not doing BTC in 2023. Crap, what do we do?" So like
Mm.
that's where it's really affected riders like him, where he had planned
Yeah.
backwards from the year that he thought he could go in, and then it changed, and then it sort of they've had to then think on the fly and work out what to do instead. And also, quite incidentally, like he was one of the original MLab Academy riders back in it'd have been sort of 2022, I think.
I
So
was going to say, this was 4 years ago. That I remember watching him race at Silverstone. Yeah,
yeah, but no, so yeah, Sully's got a podium. He's actually done better this year in the Red Bull rookies than he has the actual Moto Junior. He's with CIP as well, actually in
yeah, in Junior
yeah,
GP,
in Moto Junior. So
Moto 3
um,
Junior.
I know it's so frustrating all the name changes. So but
Yeah,
no,
we'll get
so
used
like
to it.
yeah, he's third place like in if you're getting on a podium in a Red Bull Rookies race, that's no mean feat. That's very, very solid.
Yeah.
And he was, those races are like he was sort of 2 tenths off a win, basically. So,
He was leading at one point as well. I think going into Pacini in Mugello, he was leading the race.
yes.
Which, just like Eddie was leading into Pacini actually as well. Eddie led for a lap, I think, or half a lap, didn't he? So yeah, there
Led
must
for a
be something
couple,
about
didn't you?
Mugello. Yeah, yeah, it wasn't just one lap actually. No, it was for a couple of laps. And obviously Kelso was doing well at the front as well.
Yeah,
But yeah,
until he got
let's stay
barged
back up.
out the way, didn't he?
He did. He got beaten up a bit. Yeah. Eddie got beaten up a bit on that last lap. He really got bullied a bit. But then again, so did the championship leader Max Keeles. He got bullied. He got really battered actually and beaten up out the way. He was not happy about that. But anyway, I'm going off piece there. Um, I wanted a quick question about Christian Daniel. Not many people know that there's an American in rookies doing quite solidly. I mean, what? Just remind me his age, and is there an urge to get him into Moto3 as an American?
I think he's 17. Yeah, I mean, you'd think there's got to be, like you would say, having a young American rider on the grids has
Yeah.
got to tick the boxes. So, yeah, I'd be very surprised if there wasn't people wanting it to happen. He did actually do round one of MotoGP with the he filled in for Evan at the first round of
Oh,
MotoGP. Sorry,
Moto
Moto
3, Moto
Junior.
3. Yeah, Moto Junior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he wasn't at the second round, but hopefully, as he's got on the grid once this year in Moto Junior, hopefully he can get back out again. But yeah, no, he's obviously, like I think last year he finished, was it about seventh in the championship? No, sorry, yeah, he's finished 10th last year in the championship, got a podium. Like again, it's
He's currently
certainly
currently P9, currently P9 in the standings for Red Bull rookies. Um, so yeah, I mean we've seen riders move up from rookies to Moto3 with less credentials, haven't we? So I think that's entirely possible. Especially if
yeah,
he's
and
I mean,
he ticks the right boxes, doesn't he? At the end, like
yeah,
he's also very talented. But like if we're talking about Liberty Media and stuff, it makes a lot of sense for him to get the opportunity. It's to be honest, it's one of the things I've posted many times. Like with the sort of buzz around women's sport in general and Liberty Media, I would absolutely love to see a junior GP team stick Kayla Yakov on a stock 600 bike with the view of
yeah,
her doing a European Moto 2 campaign, because you've got an 18-year-old girl, you know,
who is rapid.
she beat,
Yeah,
yeah, she beat Darren Binder in the Daytona
yeah,
200 to be the first female ever in Moto America Supersport to be on the podium. I think she's got 4 podiums in a row now in racing against people like Darren Binder. So talking of like, stuff that commercially makes sense a lot, I'd love to see a
yeah.
team stick her on because I think if it happened to work, an American female rider in the Grand Prix paddock is like,
Mm.
that is marketing jackpot, isn't it? Basically.
It is, yeah. It's double whammy. We've had it a few times in Moto2. We had Josh Herring in 2014 when there was the
Yep.
Caterham Moto2 team. And he's went on to went back and dominated the American series. But he never made it enough Moto2. Then we had Cameron Bobier who did a lot better. Truthfully,
Yeah.
he came was more promising. I think he said he got homesick and the age bracket he was just a bit too late. So for Christian Daniel, I always say that if you can go through Moto3, it does feel like the more thoroughbred sort of natural way to go up. Yes, actually, I say that when you look at the likes of Aegis, Aldeguer,
Yeah.
some of these riders, Morbidelli, even you can go to riders that have Jack Miller who skipped
I think,
Moto uh,
Jack
Moto3
Miller.
is the more organic way of doing it. But at the same time, some riders, maybe it's because they're too tall, they're skipping Moto3 World Championship and going straight to Moto2 from the Junior Moto2 Championship, which we haven't even touched on actually in this pod. Aldeguer is probably the best example of doing that. It's the most successful example of doing that. Of course, we've got the likes of Senna Aegis as well, and who looks like he might be going to Tech 3 KTM next year. It's not confirmed, by the way, folks, but it's looking likely. So that is another route we haven't really covered. but it's not. It's not always a guarantee. I think you can go straight from Moto3 World Championship into Moto2 and still kick ass with more ease to a degree. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I think to be fair, there was a period of time where the European Motor 2 Championship was sort of a dead end, if that makes sense. It didn't
Mm,
really, the standard wasn't good enough to warrant anyone looking at it almost. Whereas if you like look this year, you've got Dennis Foggia, you've got Jacob Ralston. I think like Xavi Zeratuza was meant to do it as well. So like the standard is so much higher now. So Stefano Neppa's doing it. Just thinking of people that have been in the Moto 3 and stuff. So like it's now at a point where it is a legitimate stepping
yeah,
stone.
yeah,
The
yeah,
the issue with it is it's a really expensive stepping stone, very expensive stepping stone. So like, because almost like when we're talking about the Junior GP prize and stuff, like the prize for the Motor 4 British Cup, it's a shame that there was like the prize is basically to get a Junior GP ride. Someone like Lucas Brown that won British Talent Cup in 2024, who's say 6'2", it
yeah.
would have
What?
been great if
Yeah,
he'd have had the chance to do European Moto 2 instead of
that
Junior GP
point.
because
That's a brilliant point. That's a very
like
important
you look,
point.
yeah, because if you look at the riders that he's riding against at the moment in his debut year of Supersport, he's a very good rider, but he was always going to be too big for that Junior GP bike. Whereas if he could have got an opportunity on a European Moto 2 bike,
Yeah,
who knows? Maybe that could have been our Moto 2 rider in 2028. Who knows? He might
yeah,
not have been, but I think it would have gave him a much better
yeah.
chance of making it in MotoGP had he have had that option.
I think that's one of the best points to sort of end on. Really, I was going to bitch about Silverstone, but I think that's an amazing. I wasn't really folks. It was more if we think the British Grand Prix will stay, but
I'm sponsoring something at Silverstones. It's a fantastic venue, and I really like the place.
I like the place. But I'll touch on that in a second. What I was going to say was what you said about the European Motor 2 as a sort of prize to a stepping stone that isn't just a reward that isn't a junior GP. If you're 6'2" or however tall Lucas Brown is, my goodness me, like, you could follow in the footsteps. But in theory, if you think you're good enough or you are good enough, you could follow the footsteps of Fermin Aldeguer.
Yeah,
It's in writing if you're fast enough as well. I mean, yeah, 2028 we could have had a Moto 2 rider that's British again if we don't see the progression of Scott Ogden in that class in the next couple of years. So I mean, hoping Stuart Higgs. I mean, I know he wants to. I know obviously the business model for BSB is yes, he is trying to help them get to Grand Prix to a degree, but he also wants to keep some of the best riders in BSB. So I do hope that there can be some sort. I mean, that'd be great if, like, well, I
in
don't know, if you're
fairness,
19
Higgs
or you're
has nothing
20,
to do. I was going to say Higgs has nothing to do with the
yeah,
prizes. It'd be more at the moment, obviously. So MLab only have, I say only, MLab are running the Moto 4 and the Moto Junior bike. But like I would imagine at some stage, whether it be in a year, 2 years, 3 years, I imagine they would want a European Motor 2 bike, I would guess. And that'd be a natural progression, especially if they did try and get into Moto 2 as well. So that's where it's just a shame that where the prize that Dorna give is so black and white,
mm,
it's sort of like at one size has to fit all.
yeah,
And to me, Lucas had a much, much better chance of making it if he'd
yeah,
have got a funded ride in Moto 2. But obviously, the prize is a junior GP bike. So, yeah, there's that to me is something that could be considered because, yeah, not every rider's the same. And his path, I think, would have made more sense doing it that way. But yeah,
yeah,
unfortunately, at the
yeah,
moment, that like at the time, that wasn't possible.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe looking forward. What I meant, really meant was, I mean, if Stuart Higgs or his team around him, or if that organisation could help that happen in the future, if they had any form of means of doing that into Grand Prix. But that's another conversation because we've been talking for a while now. Can you just tell folks what Grassroots Grand Prix is doing at Silverstone for the obviously there's a go kart track there basically, folks, that finally bikes are being let loose on. So there is something Silverstone are doing for young riders on mini bikes. Ryan, take it away with what's going on there over the Grand Prix over the British Grand Prix weekend.
It's still sort of being, I think, like all of the final details are being finalised, but basically there'll be a
Yeah,
fab racing round on
yep,
the brand new go-kart track, and it's an amazing bit of kit. Like, they have not spared a penny on it. I think it's about 1,500 meters long. It was built with the aim of having the karting world championships held there. So,
yeah,
you know, that's the grade that they've built it to, basically.
yeah,
It heads and shoulders the best kart track in this country. Wouldn't even be close. It better probably than anything they use in Spain, to be honest. It's that level. It's such a good track. So they're racing on it the Grand Prix weekend. So that'll be mini
yeah,
bikes and mini moto. And basically we're sort of sponsoring the event to sort of help reduce entry costs. So anyone at Silverstone, just go along, and it's behind what it uses, part of the old bridge layout.
yeah.
So
So where the
the old
stage
Grand
used to
Prix
be,
layout,
basically.
exactly, yeah. So
Yeah,
part of the track is actually the old track for bridge. So they do actually
yeah,
use the original track.
yeah,
Um, so
yeah,
yeah, it's perfect position to go and what. So yeah, that will be really good. And yeah, as a general rule, what we try to do with grassroots is raise money for riders, British Irish young riders. And basically, like this weekend, as I said, you've got British and Irish kids racing in like Ireland. Sorry, not in Ireland, in ESBK, in Mere Racing Cup. You've got the third round of the Moto Mini UK. So basically, one of the philosophies of the account is everyone's lazy. So what I try and do is stick everything in one place. So instead of everyone having to follow 17 different championships to find out what's going on, I've tried to condense something into one page so it just makes it easier. So if you follow the page on Facebook, Instagram, we will basically display all of the results of those races. And also, like, it's great to see how the young British riders are going through, but you'll also like the riders racing in these ESBK Talent Cups and stuff are going to be in Moto 3, basically. So,
yeah,
these are literally, these are proxy world championships, essentially.
yeah,
So the riders winning in this will be in Moto 3 in whether it be 3, 4, 5 years time. So they're not just random names. Like, these will be people that you'll be sat watching every Sunday morning in a few years' time.
yeah. This isn't something you can have your kid queue up at Silverstone, folks, and have a go. It's not like that. This is a Fab Racing
No,
series.
these are no, sorry,
It's
I
the
mean as
real
in
deal.
the
Yeah.
so we're like no, sorry, I meant more within like the SBK
Oh,
championship
the
is like,
SBK, right? Yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah,
that
yeah,
is a
yeah,
genuine world championship, essentially.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's obviously not entitled, but all of those riders, it's the fastest kids in the world of that age group are all there, basically.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
So no, and then one thing we're doing this year is we're actually paying for 12 riders to have professional coaching in Spain during the winter.
That's brilliant,
That'll
mate.
partly be, yeah, so basically the top two in four championships, and then there's like four selected riders as well for some of the riders that won't win a championship in Britain because they're racing abroad. So it's sort of with those in mind. But yes, that
Yeah,
because it's sort of like, as I said, we will never have what we've got, what the Spanish kids have. So if
yeah.
if you can't beat the Spanish, join the Spanish is very much my like, in the simplest of terms, it
No,
seems to work for
it's the
them.
right way to. Yeah, no, no, I think
So
that's one of the best prizes imaginable.
yeah, so that, and it will, for some kids already have professional coaching. For others, it might be the first time they've had it, and the idea is to sort of try and get people to see the benefit of doing the professional coaching instead of, say, going to Spain 5 times during the winter, maybe only go 2 or 3 times, but use the money you've saved from the extra
Yeah.
trips to pay for professional coaching, and you'll probably end up a net better rider despite doing less track time. And then obviously the benefit for the parent there is when you're in Spain at a go-kart track, you're not working. So if you're self-employed, it's saving you money. And if you're employed, it's saving your annual leave that you need to sort of keep. So yeah, that's the idea. And that's basically, so yeah, that's the general gist. And the point is to sort of raise profile. And then at the point where the brand, I guess, if you want to call it
Yeah.
that, became big enough, it sort of seemed pointless not to try and raise money because the hard part is building the brand. So once you've got the brand, it's easier to do other stuff with it. So yeah, that's the basic gist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Well, there you go, folks. So that's grassroots to Grand Prix. Yeah, on all socials. You don't need me to tell you the tag is grassroots to Grand Prix. It will pop up straight away. I'm not going to blow smoke up Ryan's ass because he hates it, but he is quite modest, and so fair play. And that's a great prize as well. So go say hi as well at the Fab Racing event. It's Silverstone for the British Grand Prix for that one. See what that's all about and see some young guns riding that around that amazing go-kart track. I tell you what, folks, there's an onboard lap you can find. I'm pretty sure you can find that on board that you sent me, can't you? Of that mini bike going around the go-kart track in Silverstone, or is
no,
that was that is that
that's
a
private.
private video? Is it all right?
Yeah.
You can't, folks. But anyway, just go to Silverstone and see it for yourself, folks. So that's where the bridge corner was. There'll be a go-kart track there and mini bike racing, Fab Racing bikes there, and some young guns. So have a look at that over the course of the British Grand Prix weekend if you're going.
And for anyone that's got kids and wants to get their kids racing, and it's not the easiest sport, you can't just go to a go-kart track and hire a go-kart like you would on four wheels. If anyone like with kids, etc., families, if you go along, there'll be people there to speak to, and they will give you they'll help you, advise you how to get into racing. The same with there's Fab Racing and British mini bikes in this country, and if you look at their calendars, like next weekend, Fab Racing's at Hooton Park, sort of up near Ellesmere Port. So, like, people local to there, if you want to get your kid racing, if you go along and speak to people in the paddock, they will give you advice on how to get racing. Because, as I said, it's not the most accessible sport. You can't, as a 6-year-old, just go to a go kart
No.
centre and stick them in a cadet go kart. It's a bit more complicated than that. So, it's a great
Yeah.
way of going to these mini bike races
Yeah.
to actually find out firsthand how to do it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That's invaluable information, and that's probably better than using the internet sometimes, when you can speak to an expert like that who's there. So yeah, just go for that, folks. If you've got a young child, boy or girl who's into doing it, and you do want to go for the weekend anyway, then for goodness sake, go and check that out. That's just a no brainer, folks. But yeah, I could carry on talking about that for hours, but we've really got to wrap this up. Brian, thanks so much for joining. We didn't have time for the perfect 24 that I said that you might have to. Maybe next time you're on, you can tell us your perfect 24 MotoGP rider grid, but we just simply haven't got time today. But thanks for joining, and folks, give him a follow. Give Grassroots to Grand Prix a follow, because it's quite important as well for the growth of the British motorcycle racing industry for young riders moving up. So, anything else you need to add before we go?
No, all good.
All right, guys, thanks for joining as always, and we'll be back next week. So, thanks for joining, folks, and thanks again, Ryan. We'll be back next time. Bye.
Cheers for having us.